I think we could go ahead and get started. I want to say thank you to everyone who was patiently waiting in that waiting room. We had a slight technical difficulty just before getting on, but everything seems squared away now. My name is Kayla Del Biondo, and I am coordinator of adult programming and outreach at the library. And it's been my pleasure to partner with the New Canaan Chamber of Commerce and Laura Budd, the executive director, who is on with us tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking about pivoting. This is a part of our Story of Startups series. It's part 2 of a 4-part course. And I just want to encourage everyone, we're taking a break week next week where we're going to kind of regroup, and we're going to be sending you all out a survey to see what your interests are so that we can cater the latter half of the series to everyone who's been on these calls. And then we're going to pick it back up on February 23rd with a program on the entrepreneurial mindset. So if you haven't registered for the remainder of the series, please do so at newcanaanlibrary.org/calendar. And I will turn it over to Laura.
Thank you. Thank you, Kayla. Thank you, New Canaan Library. Welcome to session 2, the art of pivoting. I think pivoting is one of those words that we're all probably a little sick of because we've heard it for the past 12 months, but it is so crucial. It's a crucial skill for all business people and especially entrepreneurs. So we think this was, when we were setting up the curriculum, we knew this was going to be a really crucial session, and I think there's a lot to learn. Once again, we have Christine Sullivan, who's a Connecticut Small Business Advisor for our region, and she is a wealth of knowledge with all her experience. She led us last week. And then joining us is Doug Campbell. And Doug, there's nothing he hasn't done in business. He is a true business guru. He's launched, he's built, he's started, he's coached C-suite levels, young entrepreneurs, anyone. So we're really lucky that he is right here with us. He's the entrepreneur in residence at Ferguson Library, which I love. So it's our pleasure to welcome Doug. And you know, we're going to be talking about how to be nimble, and that's a really important skill. So thank you, everybody, and take it away, Christine and Doug.
That was a wonderful, wonderful introduction. And I don't think I can add to that, but to say that I'm going to be moderating the Q&A for Doug. And I think Kayla just posted that there is a Q&A window in the bottom. So as he's talking, feel free to put those in there and we'll make sure that we get to all of it by the end. So Doug, it's all yours.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. It's great to be here. I sat in on Christine's program last week, and it was really excellent. I think it's a terrific program, and I compliment the Chamber and the library and everyone for putting this together. So I will put a screen up. Can you see that, Christine?
Not yet, but give it a minute.
Try again, Doug. You should be the host now.
Try it again. Okay. This is host. It says host disabled participant screening here. So try it again here. Okay, you're the host now. Okay. So how about that? There we go.
That works.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, it's great to see everyone, and I going to go through some ideas on pivoting. It's very, you know, today's challenge. So pivoting, what does it mean? When your first business model is not working, and this happens more often than not, the CEO and the team pivot to plan A1 or B. I mean, you've got to realize that that usually is the case. And it means shifting to a new strategy. It does not mean changing the whole company. Many times a company has only one important problem that needs to be addressed and only requires one aspect of the company to be changed. I think that's pretty common. I actually talked to a lot of people about pivoting and companies they've worked with. I work with the Connecticut innovations companies. I've started 5 businesses. So I've seen a lot of situations over the years. So it's a challenge. Now, I think there are 2 types of pivots in business, and COVID has obviously accelerated that, but many businesses today are thriving. I'd say 30 to 40% of them are. Actually, one of my major clients as a CEO coach is a printed circuit board company, and we've actually grown from 40 to $80 million in the last 6 months, and part of it was the strategy to get into the medical products area there.
Doug,
But
do you think you can put appears on full screen. So if you just go view slideshow, that way it
Full
gets a little
screen.
bigger. I think if you hit slideshow in the top or view slideshow,
View slideshow, sorry.
yeah, it's all the way to the right on the top bar. View, yeah.
Up
No, I'm sorry.
here.
Like under, it says home, insert, design, then back to the left. Yeah.
This one?
No,
Is that it?
that'll do it. Yes.
Is that okay? Sorry about that.
Great.
You know, the constant pivot is really the biggest challenge for business today. You have to embrace change. I mean, change is a constant and an opportunity. You have to test ideas continually. You have to change or stop what isn't working. You have to reward and encourage failure and success by key employees. And you have to search widely for new ideas and approaches. That's the constant pivot. And that's kind of the challenge for many, many businesses today. The second type of pivot is the need a new business model pivot. You know, it's not working. Your business is really challenging. If you have an existing business that can fund some new ideas, try it. One of the classic ones is Odeo, probably a company you've never heard of. Odeo was a search engine for searching for podcasts on the web, and it was not working. They were having a terrible time. The CEO threw out to his team, he said, you have 2 weeks to figure out a new business model. And they came up with a new business model with 140 characters in a little company called Twitter, which we now know is completely, you know, it's been very successful and has grown a lot, become part of our lives there. When do you pivot? Your company is, if you find you're playing catch up a lot of the time, you know, one of the great success companies over the years was General Electric until the last maybe 15 or 20 years, but they were always focused on being number one or number two in every business. And if they weren't, they got out of that business there. But if you find you're behind other competitors, maybe you need to think about a pivot. There's too much competition. One of the great success stories in Connecticut is called Athletic Brewing. It's actually a top 50 entrepreneur in the country, and it's a non-alcoholic beer brewed up in Stratford. Billy Schufeld was actually in my son's class in Darien, Connecticut, growing up. He's done a phenomenal job, and he basically went after the non-alcoholic beer market and has the best product on the market. He just won the best non-alcoholic in the world competition. Your company's hit a plateau. You know, have you reached a level? One of the companies I worked with quite a bit as a coach and all their team was Spinnaker Real Estate Partners, and they had a very successful real estate company, but it hit a plateau. So we actually created a whole new division and helped develop a lot of South Norwalk and a number of projects over there with a totally different feel and team and culture there. One thing gets the most traction. My cousin actually created the silk products industry, and he started a company that sold environmental books. His grandmother had written a book on herbs. He sold environmental products. This is quite a while ago. And one of the products he sold were silk gloves, and silk gloves just hit. Everybody loved them. He transitioned the entire business to a 68-page silk products catalog. He was a great writer. He had started the cross-country ski magazine for Times Mirror. And he built the company up to 20 million and sold it. But he went after what the really successful, and that was in the days of direct mail before email there, but he was very successful. There's a lukewarm response in the market. You know, I mentioned the Odeo project, or your perspective has changed. I think it was Zappos that kind of changed their model to, we want to give away shoes and build on that. And in an equal way. And a number of companies have used that kind of changing perspective to give away products. How do you pivot effectively? Once you've decided to pivot, do it as fast as you can. Do it early. I think a lot of people, you know, wait way too long the other challenge with a lot of small businesses, if you have a key employee who's not performing that well or is frustrated or has a bad attitude, a lot of times it's very difficult. You have an emotional attachment and you wait too long to make the changes. Chances are that employee is going to be happier in a different situation as well. So think about it. If you're going to pivot, go for it. Pick new goals that align with your vision there. And don't scrap the work you've already done. Sometimes people don't really think about what we can use, what we can reuse in our new direction. And listen to your customers. The feedback that customers give is a great indicator whether you should pivot or not. You really should test ideas, as I said in the first definition. Test, and try things. What works, build on it. Double the effort, triple the effort. And make sure that pivot presents opportunities for growth in the long run. I'm going to go through a couple of businesses I've been involved with and how they pivoted or changed over the years there. And I'll talk about those a little bit. But here are some of the big pivots that are in place now. And there are probably a number of others you can think of, but going to virtual meetings. A lot of companies obviously have had to switch to virtual meetings. Telemedicine has grown tremendously and become a key tool for doctors to use there. Even our Entrepreneur in Residence program at the Ferguson Library, which Christine mentioned, we now do every other Monday, we do virtual conversations with the EIRs, and we have about 15 entrepreneurs on there, and we have a very rich discussions with someone every 2 weeks who presents their business and gets feedback. Delivered products is a big one. Obviously stores, everything has had to really think about, can we deliver? How do we deliver? Amazon kind of changed a lot of things. Products to green products. A lot of the growth has been in green products or, socially responsible products, food to healthy food. A percentage for the product, for the planet is a big one. One of the companies that I've helped work with is Maca. It's a wheatgrass drink company, and they've raised some capital, and they give 1% for the planet. That's part of their mission there. The workday is, for a lot of young professionals, is being on call all the time. That's a pretty big pivot that you have to do that. Zoom meetings, Microsoft Teams meetings, huge focus. And, social media focus and virtual networking. I got my MBA at the Darden School at the University of Virginia. And I now network with the UVA group, and it's connected me with some very talented people in Virginia and DC there. And having a virtual team now, I think, is much easier. One of the companies I worked with years ago, we used to have a Tuesday at 4:00 call, because we had 8 or 10 people, some on the West Coast, some in Chicago, some in Connecticut, New York. Now with a virtual team, you can see each other and do that. And of course, digital dollars. This is a new one. Elon Musk just committed $1.5 billion to digital Coinbase. So, you ought to pay attention to that. Does that affect you? Is that an opportunity there? So a couple of the businesses that I mentioned, Sylvan Learning Center, which is a tutoring business. My wife and I started the first tutoring center on the East Coast, and I helped set up their national advertising. You may have heard of the company there. And for 35 years, we ran it. My wife's father had been head of a private day school, and she had worked for a local private school, and it was just a perfect fit for her. And so we started with math and reading. Over the next 10 years, we added study skills, reading, readiness, writing, and SAT. This was through the national chain. And then, things kind of peaked. There was a lot more competition, and Sylvan decided to sell CD-ROM computers and related products. And this was when you never knew what a CD-ROM computer was, where you could see pictures of animals and different things. Well, it didn't work. It completely failed. No one bought. The parents were there for tutoring and helping their kids perform better and catch up and things like that. We also got into computer adaptive testing, which was online computer testing. This was very early and at least didn't work for us as our model. Gwen added SSAT prep and school advisory business, which was really on local level because we had teachers from 15 schools, knew all the schools, all the programs. And then Sylvan really went into a tablet digital model away from the model that really had been extremely successful. And my wife was very much, the teachers had 20 years experience. They were experts at writing or study skills or specific programs. And we moved out of the business when it really went digital because we didn't, it wasn't a fit for what you wanted to do. The other one is the Success Coach. I started this 25 years ago, and I really started after I taught for 10 years MBA and undergraduates and 5 years in a corporate Fortune 100 running 23 locations. So I'd seen a lot of different things. I also worked on Capitol Hill, and I worked at the UN on ocean programs early in my career. So over the years, how did it change? I started 1 and 2 day mini MBA programs for small businesses. Then in '96, someone asked me to go down and speak at the national conference on coaching. And there was a lot of people like me who'd started businesses like giving back, like people, like diversity of ideas and thought. I had actually started a newspaper too before I went to business school and sold out my interest, but we grew it 8-fold in a couple of years before I went to business school. In 1998, I joined the National Speakers Association as a paid speaker. So if you have 25 paid speeches in a year, and that was a good opportunity to kind of expand on my coaching practice. I added kind of specific assessments on performance and skills and abilities, core competencies. I changed the name to CEO coach because I really wasn't a business coach as much anymore as kind of CEO and executive coach. Then I wrote a couple books on reinventing your business as your career, one in 2009 and another in 2015 on unleashing the passions of your youth and your entrepreneurial thing. Now I'm on the board of the Angel Investor Forum, which funds and grows Connecticut companies. And we just saw a number of companies today on that and work with Connecticut Innovations. And I've been an entrepreneur in residence for a couple of years. So all these are small pivots, I guess I would say, but they've added to kind of different experiences and opportunities there. Where to look for pivots here. Think about fulfill unmet needs. Obviously, actually I saw a very interesting company today, very talented woman out of Westport. It's called Shop Tomorrow's, and it's basically children's clothing, that kind of high-end children's clothing that's being sold through a network that people join. And she's got 1,000 people involved, very successful. And it's really an unmet need that a lot of parents have these clothes for 3 and 4 and 5 and 6-year-olds. They really want to, trade them, but if there isn't a model or they don't have relatives or they're looking for specific brands, very interesting idea. Create solutions. A lot of restaurants have paired up with delivery companies to kind of provide a complete solution. And obviously there are unique delivery companies too. Create new value with your existing assets. Think of the business like water filtration systems for homes. The whole digital Nest system where you can run all your electronics for your house. Those are, kind of pivots that are possible there. Rethink the product service idea. A lot of products and services now have, insurance, or they have, 2 or 3 year coverage there. There's just you now consider it a product that you take or you don't take with your product that doesn't work in a couple of years. And focus on what customers really love to do that. There. Kitchens by Dean, local business, really neat business. They really, it's interesting. Someone invited me to a cooking party, and Peter Dean's wife he runs a culinary school, and so they used the facility for the cooking class. Made some money from that, taught people cooking, and showed off the facility, which is fantastic. The one in Stanford was the one I went to, but it was great. There. We value network. How do you find new ways to deliver value? Obviously, online or direct sales have grown a lot. Are you doing enough in that area? There. Can you shift to a better, faster, better, cheaper supply chain? Who is your supplier? Another company I work with is Wheatgrass Company. We actually switched suppliers. It was quite a bit cheaper and allowed them to offer more varieties of this wheatgrass brand there. Connect through partners. You know, who are the partners that maybe you haven't worked with or could work with, and really think about that broadly. Repurpose your assets. I mean, I'm throwing a lot of ideas at you, or change what you offer. Obviously, subscriptions, long-term contracts. You know, with the coaching business, I offer 6-month contracts, and that helps get a commitment from the client. And also, I think it works better overall with the working relationship. Where to look for pivots? You know, target customers. What benefits do you provide to whom? You know, again, we've kind of talked about all these. Find new clients, reposition offering with existing clients, and harness the ecosystem with collaborative partners. Final thoughts, as I do want to take questions, comments. A pivot should align the firm with one or more of your long-term trends. Second, it should be a lateral extension of the firm's existing capabilities, really cementing and strengthening its strategic intent. That's important there, I think, you know, really thinking about that. And then third, you know, sustainable path to profitability. I think that's a good one there. And then successful pivot, what leads to success? And I do think, you know, I was kind of stepping back and saying, I think you need to think about your left brain and your right brain, or with your team, to have really the creativity side, the imagination to test ideas and build ideas and think about that, but also the left brain, which is really the analytical side. What's the return? What's the numbers? I know when my cousin Frank Farwell, he would run ads in Yankee magazine, and in those days, direct mail, you would measure exactly, okay, I spent $200 on an ad and I got $800 worth of product, and you know, that was very successful. Now I'm going to spend $1,000 and hopefully I'll get, you know, $2,000 response. Study markets and competitors, and then ask questions, get input from stakeholders. So I think that's, you know, kind of an overview, Christine, and, you know, questions, comments would be great.
That was great, Doug. That was a lot of information in there.
Hopefully not too much.
No. So I think some of the questions that I'm seeing, I've gotten an email and some here in the Q&A. I'd encourage people to put your questions in the Q&A. But here's a good one. What types of ways do you suggest you communicate with the client for their ideas and feedback that will help the company pivot?
Well, I think, you know, if you have kind of a unique idea and you have some of your clients, let's say your core clients, you might want to call or set up an individual meeting or Zoom call today and share it with them, see what they think. Another thing you could do is do a survey. You know, we've seen that Survey Monkey or other things. You probably got some ideas along that too. But yeah, reach out to the customers and then really gauge it.
Yeah. One of the things that I've seen people talk about is, you know, putting together sort of your board of advisors, or the people who are supporting your company, sort of good times and bad. Who are the key people that you want to include in this pivot decision?
So I've worked with some companies and the board of advisors, and I think that's really helpful. And it can be very informal, but I think about, you know, the 4 or 5 people that maybe you'd like to be informally on your board, and what are their skills? What are the skills you need? Do you need someone who's really knows marketing? Do you need someone who knows banking or finance? Or do you need someone who knows the industry and can really drill down and help with that? So think about kind of the 4 or 5 disciplines that would really help you. Maybe 1 or 2 of those people are people you've known a long time, or other entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs love to help each other. And I know when I taught, I developed the entrepreneurship programs at Sacred Heart University, I would have students go out and interview entrepreneurs. And, you know, I'd give them about 20 questions and they could ask whatever they want. And then they present it to the class. And then they also had to do a business plan and present the business plan. But a number of them actually got funding or got support or got an advisor out of that interview process. It was interesting. People love to be asked their opinion, and particularly from other entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs.
Oh, that's great. And what about looking internally? So if you do all this work to come up with your pivot, what happens if not everybody agrees?
Well, I think you've got to get everyone on board. I would say one of the biggest growth challenges for a business is, okay, you've done fairly well. Now you want to get to the next level. And I think at that point, you need to pull everyone together in a meeting or in a group format and just, and after having done all the work and really clear on what you're going to do and lay it out and get everyone behind the idea. And if people really resist, or there's, individuals, and then I think you've got to talk to them. I mean, if you're the business owner or the business team decides to do this, people have to get on board. There are ways sometimes you could carve out part of the business and have people be responsible for that. But, it is an important process.
Yeah. Are there, can you share a story of the most challenging yet successful pivot? I know you gave a lot of them in the pitch.
Well, I would say, one of them was an interesting one. I was written up in the Wall Street Journal, and a guy named Garylico called me up. And Garylico was he started Actor Studio and Forensic Files and Animal Detectives. He started about 100 cable shows. And it was interesting because he had gotten bogged down in kind of running his business. He had a dozen people and he was dealing with managing people, and he had the wrong CFO in place, and it was part-time, and he had big projects, Court TV in Europe, he was licensing, things like that. And basically, we sat down and said, hey, Gary, you need a strong number two. You need someone, because you're a business development guy. You're an idea guy. You can create programs, and you need a strong number two. So we took his best, most talented person, put him in charge of daily and regular operations, and got a new CFO, and it took off the next year after being flat for quite a while. He just had an incredible year and, created so many things. It was kind of neat to see. Mm-hmm. So he was stuck. I mean, sometimes people are stuck, and that's where I think sometimes coaching or a sounding board or a mentor or a trusted advisor, can really be a sounding board to help you kind of talk through, think through, consider options, and really drill down on that.
That's great. So here's another question from the group. Many of the entrepreneurs are heading family businesses. What are the special dynamics to managing the family that you need to consider?
Family businesses, there are always some extra challenges, and I congratulate everyone who's in a family business. I think it's really great. I would say one of the tenets I would say is really important. If you're bringing relatives into the business or kids, that they should work outside the business for 3 to 5 years, no matter what the business is. I just think that is so much better in terms of experience. And second of all, I think it should be based on merit, on, talent, education, performance. And that sometimes is a challenge. I'm trying to think, sometimes the different generations don't work well together. I mean, I worked with one family where the kids really, the kids were in those days were in the late 20s, and the parents, they really wanted to take the business in a totally different direction. And there was a lot of tension around that. We finally worked out an agreement that kind of made sense all around, but there are going to be different feelings of generations and how to run a business and how to manage a business and how to be modern, let's say, or modern business practices, techniques. So sometimes it is helpful to have someone to kind of help with that negotiation or think through process.
Right. And similarly, I think somebody noticed that on your slide that you and your wife seem to be in business for 35 years.
Yeah, and so I should talk about that. So
because that's a dynamic that's surprising to
well, that's a little bit misleading. So, so we we started the business in '84, and at the time I was had a big corporate job, and we spun off and started Sylvan. And I'd always wanted to start a business, and this was, I see trends early, so this was a brand new idea. It's professional tutoring, individualized, diagnostic, prescriptive, measured results. It was incredible what these kids, and I talked to about 20 people who had started Sylvan's. We were the first one, as I said, on the East Coast. So when we started, and my wife Gwen did all the tutoring, hiring all the parent interaction, all the school visits, all the teacher side of it. And I handled the back end, the technology, the marketing, the finances. And then we started a second one. So I was out of the office half the time, which was probably better instead of being, most of the time. And that one was relatively successful. We decided really to focus on one center and do it. So over time, I went to about a 10%, 10% of my time on the business, and that seemed to work well. So I think if you have a family dynamic or partner or spouse or something like that arrangement, you need to figure out what it is. You need complementary skill sets. I think that's very important. And you need to find out what the working relationship is. Sometimes 100% of the time is too much. Sometimes 50% of the time is too much. And this seemed to work well, whereas I was in the office, and I had an office in the back. I also did some consulting and stuff too. So I'd be in, twice or three times a week in the afternoon or for meetings and stuff like that. And then I could check in and if you had any issues or things you needed help with. And I did a lot of the marketing too. I set up, adopt a school programs, tutor mentor programs in Stanford, things like that.
That's great. I wonder how she would answer that question.
Excuse me, I didn't get that.
I wonder how she would answer that question.
Oh, yeah, you should ask her. I did change the light bulbs too, so I wasn't really a small business owner. The fluorescent bulbs, yeah. No, but that's true. I think you've got to really work together, and it's hard because you take business home in those days. I mean, you take things home at night, or and obviously, weather challenges, employee challenges, they're front and center. So I think you need, if you start a business and you have a spouse or partner, you really need to understand that they are involved on some level, and they probably can help you in some ways, maybe more than you realize. If they aren't directly involved, they may have some skill sets. So if that's the case, they're really good at accounting or something like that. Maybe they're working somewhere else, they can help you. And maybe eventually they grow into your own business. I mean, running your own business is, as we all know, is challenging, but it's exciting and gives you a lot of challenge and it's just a great process to go through.
Right. Thank you. Going back to the idea of a pivot, right now, and you brought up COVID, I think in one of your early slides, but many entrepreneurs are trying to make a difficult decision of whether to pivot or whether just to shut down their business. So what kind of advice would you give someone in this situation?
Any specific types of business or not?
I think you can answer it however you like. I mean, I see people every day who are trying to decide, given where we are in COVID, some restaurants that have closed, and it's really, unknown when they're going to be able to open again. Other retail stores, same question. I think that there are a lot of small businesses that we see around us that are really trying to figure out whether it's a pivot or whether they should just, whether they should close. And I think maybe a different way to answer the question is, really making this pivot decision under quite a bit of stress.
Yeah, I mean, those are the toughest businesses, the restaurants and small retail. They really are. So I think if you, I'd suggest try and hang in there, because I think, 10% of people have now had vaccines. I mean, we're making progress. I think it's going to slowly get better and better. But if you can't really take advantage of some of these pivots, like the restaurants that have delivery, are probably going to do a lot better. A significant part of the business delivery, and that's probably going to continue for the next year plus. If it's a small retail, do you have delivery or do you have special service? I want, you just got to think about that. And is there more competition? A lot of times there are opportunities. I mean, I think Connecticut had 40,000 new businesses started last year, which is the highest number in 20 plus years. So there are a lot of new people starting businesses. So there are opportunities. Maybe there is a way to pivot or have a new focus for your business that's related to the original one. So try and be open-minded, try and be positive. A lot of times, friends and relatives may support you or may be more inclined to help you through difficult times. These are difficult times, no question. But attitude is really important. I think, you've got to really reach out to customers and clients and be confident. And even if behind the scenes you're really, really concerned, and I've been there. I mean, we went through several recessions with businesses. I remember, I think it was 91. There was a big recession, and then we had like 8 snowstorms, and so the tutoring business was shut down. And I mean, it was really terrible. And end of the year, a lot of times, people had commitments, and so there are going to be challenges. There are hills and valleys in running and building your business. And hopefully, when you get to the top of a hill, there's not another small valley, but you keep building up and up.
Yeah. Here's a new question connected to what you just said. There's so much talk about how Connecticut is not friendly to business. What thoughts do you hear about changing the business environment? If 40,000 businesses started last year, how bad could it really be?
I think Connecticut gets a bad rap on that. There are a lot of people in the ecosystem, including you and me, I guess, and many others. Stamford is a real hub for southwestern Connecticut. A lot of business startups, and of course the New Canaan and Darien and other areas are great too. So there are a lot of people who are committed to helping and growing Connecticut businesses, whether it's the Connecticut Small Business Development or others. So I think really reach out and find the resources that are out there. UCONN, a lot of universities have programs. They have networking groups. So some of that I think is a little overblown. The tax rate and the cost of living are definitely a little higher here, but you also have a better workforce generally, a much better educated workforce. Beautiful quality of life in this area. So there are trade-offs, but I think Connecticut over time is getting better at it.
That's great. So as an author and obviously an educator of entrepreneurship, are there any podcasts, books, or other resources that you'd recommend for people right now?
Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, other than yours, obviously, which feel free to plug.
I guess I would try to find entrepreneurial stories that maybe grab you or maybe parallel to what you're looking for. I'm always reading, different stories. Michael Dell, there was a good book he wrote. Happiness, the Zappos story is, Tony unfortunately just passed away, but that was a great story. I think look for entrepreneurial books or resources. Look for videos. I was just listening today to Guy Raz, which I think is also very inspiring. He does, how I built this business. And a lot of these interviews are like an hour. I was out walking with Gwen, with my wife, and we listened to almost the whole thing. They're about 45 minutes or an hour. So go walk with someone or walk by yourself and listen to the story. And this was a story about building a company called Atlassian, which is in Australia. It's, they kind of pivoted to be a SaaS business. And, it's the story of, hoping we get an order this week so we can keep the doors open. There are challenges building a business. Now it's a $60 billion business, valued at 60 billion. So huge success stories. But a lot of the success stories I think are inspiring. To hear some of these. And there are a lot of them locally. I remember meeting with John Bello when he was starting Sobe. I did a little work for them. And Sobe was a drink company. They started as South Beach Beverage, which was kind of a flat design. And then his daughter, John Bello's daughter, suggested, a lizard, and they changed the name to Sobe. And then they went after kind of healthy beverage. They redefined the beverage category and they took off. And it was fascinating to see that. So always challenges there, but those are really good questions. I think keep educating yourself, keep being open to learning from other people, from ideas, sitting in on programs like this. So I congratulate all of you for doing that, because I think it is great to network and network widely. I mean, I have my own networking groups too. I have actually two right now. One is what I call a mastermind group, where I have 5 of the smartest guys I know, and we get together an hour every 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, and we just talk about issues, social media. We talk about different things, and a lot of these people are, they're involved with hackathons, they're involved with startups, they're involved with VC things, they're involved with different things. And then the second group, which I've just expanded, is what I call a creative, or my high talent creatives. I actually used to run a meeting with leading entrepreneurs, which I called high talent creatives, and they would kind of tell their story, and I invite, other talented entrepreneurs, I thought, or authors or speakers or whatever. And so it's 5 people, and they all have their own business. They all are very talented creatively. And so we were actually exploring a business idea on Monday, which is really a big idea. So it's kind of neat. So we're going to get 5 inputs on that, and then meet a couple weeks later, maybe on something else. So, come up with your own ways to kind of connect with people and build your kind of intellectual capacity to kind of share ideas and explore ideas, learn from other people. I think that's really important.
No, that's great. I want to just emphasize how many hours I've spent listening to Guy Raz's podcast. For anybody who is interested, it's called How I Built This, and it's under an hour, and he interviews different entrepreneurs, and it really does give you, I think, a lot of confidence as an entrepreneur, that when things get hard, that they got hard for everybody else too. And one of my favorites was when he interviewed John Foley from Peloton. And, now, I mean, Peloton is really a COVID darling, but the story that I liked the most was how many venture investors John had to go to and was told no, that nobody believed anybody was going to want to use this bike. And then when they told the part of the story when they unboxed the first prototype of the bike, and somehow it had been made over in China and came here, and then when they unboxed it, it was like 1.5 times larger than they had imagined. So then they needed to recruit some very large in shape people for the marketing campaign on it. And it was just really put you in his shoes when making decisions was very difficult.
Yeah, no, I mean, those are great stories. And also, I think some of the business magazines are good. I don't know about Entrepreneurs much, but Inc. a lot of times has some good ones. Fast Company has some good stories. I mean, I remember one of my high talent creative meetings was with a guy who started a business called Yacht Store. And he came up early on with this idea of chartering yachts down in the Caribbean. And somehow he got written up this idea. I think he met someone who wrote it up in Forbes, and he got 400 calls over a weekend inquiring about this.
Yeah.
So there may be a way where things just explode. Another client actually was Chris Kelly. I worked with him for quite a long time. So he was the #2 editor at Power and Motor Yacht, and he was an expert, Captain Chris Kelly, and he was an expert on boat performance, the speed and the features and the turning radio and all that ratio. So he spun off and started his own streaming, his own business, his own TV show on boat performance, and he got onto the Sunshine Network and several different networks and was doing pretty well. But then along came streaming. So this is 20 years ago when John Engel was started eMedia, some of you may know, which is a great story as well. And we basically transitioned the whole business to streaming video of used boats around the country. And it was a perfect timing, because what happened was people were spending a lot of money on print ads for, Hatterases and boats like that. Now they would take 15% of it and put it on, 3 or 4 minute videos of of a boat down in North Carolina or wherever it was. And it just took off. It was the right timing. So he pivoted really well. That was kind of a neat story. Very talented guy. Now he has a company called Vehicles Test and helps test vehicles and their performance and capabilities.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And I think we have one more question. Do we know how many of the 40,000 new businesses were created by individuals who lost their jobs due to COVID or other issues?
I do not.
I don't either. I know we will be keeping track of that.
Yeah, you would. I know Alex Soul a lot of times writes many of the articles on business for the Advocate and the Hearst chain, I think. And that's where I think he quoted that. But I'm sure a lot of them are. I mean, a lot of times, recessions or slowdowns are when a lot of businesses and new business ideas get created. So we'll continue to see new models. I mean, who would have expected Zoom to be, a common part of our life every day now? There's so many business ideas coming along there, and we still haven't really seen artificial intelligence and some of these capabilities that are coming along, some of the medical and innovations, the drone innovations, the delivery. There's a lot of exciting ideas. Now, some of those maybe don't apply to this audience, but keep an eye on them, look at them. Maybe there's a way to take advantage or use these capabilities or build a partner in some of those fields and capabilities.
Yeah. We have a couple more comments and questions. So a couple of recommendations for the audience of other great podcasts. The CT Startup Podcast, which I haven't listened to. And so thank you for that. It's funded by CT Next. The next one is a podcast series by Michael Lewis called Against the Rules. And the second season's all about coaching. So that might be of particular interest. And then another question, Doug, there's an emotional component to investing in your business, both for the owner and the employees. How do you manage the emotional aspects to the change? Is it just talking to the key stakeholders?
Yeah, I mean, investing in a business is very emotional. It's, I think you have to be confident and committed and clear on what you want to do. And one of the bigger challenges is and the successful businesses, it's interesting, you walk into a business and if the employee is really passionate and helpful or the owner, I mean, you pick up on it right away. I mean, it's just amazing. And that's sometimes how I kind of evaluate businesses, how passionate are the employees about this or committed there. So you have to really think about that. What, if I'm going to invest more money in this or make this pivot commitment here, are people behind it? Am I behind it? Am I willing to ride this out? Because sometimes you have to, course correct along the way, and it can be painful or choppy out there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you very much. We're coming to the close of the hour, and this has been a very interesting conversation. So I think I want to thank you, Doug. Thank you to the library and to Laura at the chamber. Kayla, did you want to wrap up for everybody at the end?
Yeah, thank you both so much. And thank you to the audience for all of the great questions that were raised. I just put those podcast recommendations in the chat. I think that's about it. I said at the beginning, if you want to register for the remainder of the series, we'll have the Entrepreneurial Mindset, which is on February 23rd. And then we'll have a final session on March 2nd, which is Raising Capital. We'll be talking to someone from CT Next, I believe. And Christine's really, leading us through the speaker series. So she's going to be on those two calls as well. So thank you, Doug. Thank you, Christine. And everyone on the call tonight, keep a lookout for a survey. We're going to be sending you out a survey later this week to kind of see where your interests lie. So thank you both.
Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Good luck with your businesses.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Good night.